contribution of published work with affiliation from Greece, from all 714, there's only 12 who actually managed to receive more than 12,000 citations to their work from papers with affiliation from Greece. So one other way to look at the fact that even that 14% that is in Greece, actually a large share of them have done most of the work elsewhere and just returned at a late stage of their career back to Greece. 33 of these scientists have passed away. We Greeks, we always think of our homeland, and we're so nostalgic, and we want to go back, and there's so many poems about dying in your native land. Most of these people didn't really make it. So 28 died elsewhere. One died in Greece in exile. One died in Greece from an accident. One died in Greece from cancer shortly after returning to Greece. One died in Greece during his vacation, and one died of a heart attack in Greece. So not the idealistic expectation that at least at the end of my life I will be there and be happy. So the only ancient person in that list is Aristotle. Everybody else is in the modern era, actually last 50 or 60 years, mostly for the core of their work. And he's the one who died in exile, because Stagira was completely destroyed by Philip of Macedonia. At some point, actually, Aristotle became a teacher for the son of Philip, and then he spent time in Athens, but 2 times he came close to being successful. The first time he came close to becoming the successor of Plato, but then Plato had a nephew. So obviously, according to Greek tradition, the nephew got the position, and Aristotle had to run away. And then he established the Lyceon, but then even though he was against Alexander, as soon as Alexander died, the anti-Macedonia establishment felt that he was a traitor, and they accused him of sacrilege, and they would certainly have killed him. So he fled to Chalkida, which was far away based on geographic destination at that time, where he was either poisoned or he committed suicide out of sorrow, or he died of melancholia, but not a very happy ending for the greatest scientists of the ancient world. This is the other great, highly cited Greek scientists who have passed away. You can see their field of expertise and where they eventually died. As I said, very few of them died in Greece. So let's take another look at the Scopus database. There's about 60 million papers in Scopus that covers most scientific fields, again, with an emphasis on natural sciences, life sciences, technology, not arts and humanities, although they have a few papers, but not really comprehensive. Of the 61 million papers, 280,000 roughly have an address from Greece. So there's some author there affiliated with some Greek institution. And then, how about of the 50 most cited papers with an author address from Greece? Are they really happening in Greece? Is the work taking place in Greece, or is it more like a collaboration? Only 10 of those have an author address from Greece for the first or the last author. So this is pretty typical for many countries that are struggling to build a research agenda. If you don't have the resources to do something locally, you try to collaborate. And then you cannot take the lead. You're not the first or the lead author, but at least you're participating in what's really hot in a scientific field. So Greece has had this pattern where most of the highly cited papers from Greece are actually happening mostly elsewhere, but there's some Greek participation in one way or another. These are the 10 top cited papers of all time with first or last author address from Greece. And you see that they're covering a pretty wide range of expertise. So they're both in biomedicine and in chemistry and environmental sciences, and published in very different journals. But the interesting issue is, where are these people now? And currently about half of them, of the people who publish the most influential papers with a key address from Greece, are not in Greece. A couple of them have passed away, but mostly they have left Greece. One of them stopped, apparently, his scientific career early. That happens. Some very influential scientists do not continue, and it's not just a Greek phenomenon. Of the remaining, most are not in Athens. So they're in what we call the Περιφερειακά Πανεπιστήμια. There's one, my good friend Vasilis Georgoulis at the University of Athens in that list. This is the world ranking for Greece based on the number of published items in Scopus. Now, the number of publications is not necessarily the best measure of success scientifically, because obviously one could publish lots of trash. So you want to look at other indicators, but at least it gives some good impression about the volume, how much attention that country is giving to science, how many scientists are out there, how prolific they are. So I'm showing you 5-year intervals starting with 1969, at the time of the dictatorship. Greece was ranked 37. And then gradually it improved its placement to rank 24 in the world by 2009. By 2009, that rank was better than Denmark, Israel, Finland, and Norway, which sounds amazing. In terms of some of the other indicators, which include impact per paper, we were lagging behind compared to these countries. But in terms of volume, we not only caught up with them, but we went even to higher levels. Now, these indicators have some lag time. So imagine that there's a major crisis. You will not see immediately an impact, because scientific work takes some time to be done. And some projects may take several months, others may take several years. Sometimes it may take over 10 years to do a project. And there's also some delay from the time you submit a paper to publication, so another time lag of anywhere from a few months up to a couple of years sometimes, and in mathematics it could be 4 years. So the best ranking position in 2009 probably reflects a peak of productivity in terms of the work being done, maybe in 2005 or 2004, 2006. And then you see what's happening afterwards. By 2016, we have lost lots of ranking spots. We're down to 35. And again, if you take into account the time lag that I described, it's very likely that, in essence, currently Greece has gone back to the same rank that it had during the dictatorship, or maybe even worse. Here's looking at the whole globe and Greece in terms of productivity. And you see that science is prolific and getting even more prolific, so there's an upslope for the whole globe. And Greece had been doing very well, and even with a steeper upslope for a number of years, but then you see that there's a stable number, more or less, which stable compared to everybody else accelerating is actually a downslope. If you take a look also at what has happened in the evolution of that index, of how many of the top cited papers from a country are actually primarily coming from the country, so first, last, single authors. Of the 50 most cited papers with an address from Greece in 2009, 21 had a Greek address as their first and or last author. When we moved to 2014, only 6 of the 50 had a first or last author with an affiliation from Greece. So again, you see that change of ownership of the scientific work, where people are still struggling to survive, but mostly as collaborators rather than the driving force of the research. If you look at the most highly cited papers across all sciences and all scientific fields, so if you look at the 400 top papers across more than 5 million papers published and indexed in Scopus in 2004 to 2006, there were 10 Greek name investigators, who were involved as key authors, single first or last. If you go to 2014 to 2016, again, out of 5+ million papers, you look at the 400 most cited ones, there's only 5 Greek name investigators involved, and all of them are not in Greece. So the numbers are pretty small, but clearly 10 is much better compared to 5, and 10 included several people who were in Greece. Currently, 5 does not include anyone who is in Greece. Computer science is an interesting discipline that I just want to highlight to get some better sense of the dynamics of the migration of that influential scientific personnel. If you look at the list of the 200 most cited computer scientists in the world, as you expect, 3% of those would be Greek. Actually, in computer science, we're doing even better. So 4% of the top 200 in the world are Greek scientists. And these are the ones: Christos Papadimitriou, George Ioannidis, Dimitri Bartsekas, Michalis Giannakis, Dimitri Terzopoulos, John Milopoulos, John Charybdis, and Dimitris Metaxas. You see their H index, which is a citation index, and then where they graduated from, their first degree. And you see that the National Technical University of Athens is listed in 6 of the 8 as their alma mater. Another one, John Milopoulos, was born in Greece, but his first degree is from Brown, and Dimitri Terzopoulos graduated from McGill. And I'm not even sure whether he was born in Greece or elsewhere. I couldn't find that information. I need to check with him. Lots of people are leaving Greece currently, and people have been leaving Greece for a long time. Since the time of Ioannidis, this has been happening. But the composition in terms of educational background of that population has changed substantially over time. So this is some data from an LSE study combined with Eurostat and some work that Lois Labrioutakis has done, showing the educational attainment level in early years up to 1969, 70 to 79, 80 to 89, 1999, 2000 to 2009, and after 2009. And you see that there has been a gradual shift away from people who had low educational attainment, so mostly they hadn't gone to school or had only graduated from elementary, primary education, to people who are mostly graduates of universities, and many of them have PhD doctoral degrees. Currently, there is a wave of new migration from Greece, and lots of highly trained scientists are leaving the country. What proportion of highly trained scientists are leaving the country? Well, we have to run some calculations, and there's some data from some studies that have been done. The number of graduates of Greek universities is estimated to be about 1,250,000. That includes only what we call the IAE. If you add the TAE and some other institutions, it will be higher, but let's start with that as a ballpark number. The LSE study estimated that about 190,000 of them are currently not living in Greece. And if you run the calculation, this is about 15%. Of those 190,000, 135,000 have left in the last few years. So the vast majority is something that has happened very recently. One might say 15% is not that bad. We have the other 85%. But actually it is not so, because these people who have left the country include the majority of those who actually publish, not just trained in a discipline and just got a degree, and the vast majority of those who are influential scientists in their field. So those who have left behind probably are enriched in some disciplines like humanities, perhaps, and I have great respect for the humanities, but it's questionable whether a country that loses probably 80 or even 90, in some cases 100% of its high impact driving force of leading scientists in science, technology, medicine, biosciences can really survive. It's an issue of mere survival to me. Are they ever coming back? So in the past, It used to be that many Greek scientists who were leaving the country, they were training for a number of years, and then somehow they were returning back to the country. So of those who first left in 1980 to 89, 25% of them are still abroad. In the next decade, 44%, 2000, 2009, 69%, 2010 to 2015, it's 80%. So the chances of coming back are probably becoming severely curtailed over time. One might argue that there is some cohort bias here because the longer you stay, I shouldn't say the longer you stay, that's what my mentor used to say. That's a poem. The longer you stay, you may have a chance of sometime returning, but I think that the numbers are really worrisome. Why is it happening? One easy explanation is that the money is not available. So Greece, throughout its history, never invested in science and technology. There were so many other priorities in the Pelatiako Kratos, for Greek people in the audience, they understand what that means, that science and technology never became a priority. There have been many voices over the years that have been trying to push for more funds to go in that direction, R&D, science, technology, but it hasn't worked. And these are some numbers to put things into perspective. So Israel and Finland spend about 4% of their GDP in science and technology. Countries that evolved from Soviet satellite status currently spend about 2%, which is not optimal, but it's not bad. Countries like Malaysia, Kenya, Turkey, and Morocco spend 1% or a bit less. And Greece is at the same level as Uganda with 0.6%. So clearly, if you're not interested to support science and technology, it means that you don't make any investments, there's no positions for new faculty, there's no infrastructure that can sustain their work, there's just no interest, so people will have to leave unavoidably.
What's the US rate?
The US rate is close to 3%. 3%? Yeah. It's less than Israel, yeah, but it's clearly 5 times better compared to Greece, unfortunately. So a few months ago, I gave a talk at the TEDx Academy, and addressing a very large audience in Athens, I asked them, how many of you know any of these people? I think that any of these people could get a Nobel Prize any day now. And the fact that they didn't have a Nobel Prize yet, I think it's just some sort of injustice or chance that always exists. But I think most people have never heard about the existence of these scientists. And the same would apply if I were to list many, many other names. If you look at mass media, if you look at newspapers, if you look at TV programs, radio, it would be very, very rare to hear any of those people speaking about the things that they know best. You know, not about Olympiakos or their political beliefs, just about the subject matter that they know best, that might be informative for a country that is trying to find solutions about innovative ideas that may change the landscape and what could be done to solve some of the many problems that we're facing. Now, there's many other people who do talk a lot in media, and they are very visible. And a traditional pathway in Greece has been that you get promoted from assistant professor to associate and full professor, but that's not really what counts. You want to be promoted to a member of the parliament and a minister, and hopefully even prime minister or president of the republic, because people become academics to become politicians. You know, this is the main motive. You know, universities are so under-resourced and understaffed. Oh, yes, so here's some empirical data in the next 4 slides. The bar at the end is the average number of citations for the top 80 most cited Greek scientists. So there's 80 Greek scientists who have, on average, that many citations. And then here's a plot of 9 professors who served as ministers of economy, education, and health in the period 2004 to 2014. The median is about 250, I believe. Here's 13 professors who served as ministers in the government in January of 2015. the median is exactly the same. So, there's a radical change from right-center coalition to a left-right, whatever you want to call it, coalition. I'm not very good at political denominators being characterized. But the median remains exactly the same, as if they had talked to each other and they wanted to make sure that the standards would be exactly the same. Then these are 23 professors who were nominees in the countrywide ballot, the Ψηφοδέλτια Επικρατείας, in 2015, and the median decreases even further to something like 90. And then these are 14 professors serving as ministers in September of 2015, and the median drops further to about 65. So it's not zero yet, but I think we're getting there. Probably with a couple of more reshufflings, it will get to complete null.
Have you done a diagram like this with the people that serve in the academy or in Madrid?
So people who serve in the academy, they include some highly cited scientists. Dimitri Nanopoulos is highly cited. There's many others, Kollias and Roussos, are also highly cited. Not everybody, though, but clearly the picture would look much better compared to the slides that I showed you earlier. Now, how about making some interventions? How could we solve that problem, and how could that problem, by being solved, help Greece as a nation? There might be interventions at a political level, at the level of universities, and also in terms of research and development investment. And I will try to run through each one of these. So at the political level, I don't really have any good ideas, unfortunately, to share with you. I think that politicians of all political parties have failed miserably and repeatedly. All of them are either corrupt or have been very tolerant to corruption. They have all supported the Pelagiako Kratos, and maybe one good thing about the crisis, if there's anything good about the crisis, is that some of their machinery has been curtailed because they have fewer resources. So, they have less money to waste, in a sense. It's sad to think this way, but at least sometimes I'm thinking that this may be one of the collateral benefits of a major disaster. I think that they can still do harm. It's unlikely that they can do much good. I always welcome pleasant surprises, so I would love to be proven wrong and see that people who are very honest and very productive and hardworking and really focusing on meritocracy get elected next time, or who knows. That would be wonderful. But to me, if really Greece expects from politicians to solve its problems, I think it's not going to happen. It's going to be a very low chance. So the question is, what else could be done? Or what might one ask from politicians to do as some bare bones moves, so to let other people take over in terms of building the resources of the society and of universities and entrepreneurship and scholarship? So lots of things can be done at the level of universities. Yes?
I was wondering, on the political level, are you looking solely on the national level, or are you also looking at local elections or local activities? For example, we were at Thessaloniki last year, and we understood the mayor there is actually a very capable individual who's actually doing something good there.
Yeah. I'm more than happy to see good people having power in any capacity and in any office. And as I said, the best surprise for me would be to see stellar individuals becoming politicians and be elected to office, either locally or nationally. There may be some diamonds here and there. I mean, I think that that's clearly possible, although they're under so much pressure by how the system works that it's very difficult for them to maintain their stamina and their vision. It's extremely difficult. If someone can do that, it's pretty heroic. So, could universities do something? In theory, universities should have autonomy. And this is how great universities build their future. It's not that a politician will affect the curriculum at Stanford or at Hopkins or at Yale. Universities are taking their own fate in their hands. So number one, number two, and number three, universities require more meritocracy. I think that would go a very long way towards solving many of the problems that we're facing. How do you do that? Well, you have other constraints. I don't want to deny those. So there's lack of resources, there's lack of funding, there's lack of new faculty billets being available. For a number of years, there's no new billets available for recruitment of young talent, or at least I think that this is the case, because I met with a very prominent scientist from Greece a few months ago, and he was kind of scolding me. There's no positions. I know everybody. I get all the positions myself. Oh, what are you talking about? But, you know, that's probably a personal experience which I don't see replicated across the board. So these are, of course, difficulties, and we need to open some positions to young people to be recruited. And in the next slide, I'll show you what they could do if these positions become available. I strongly believe that the influence of political parties on university transparency and meritocracy has been highly detrimental. And we need to find ways to get rid of that. I'm not saying get rid of democracy. I think that every single person should be able to express their views, how extreme they are, I don't care, within a university setting. And of course, political opinions need to be expressed. But currently what's happening is that the leadership of the universities, the curricula of the universities, the grades even, are completely overwhelmed by political parties. So people graduate and they get degrees, and they get PhD degrees because they have political connections. People become deans and rectors and presidents because they have political connections. People acquire power because they have political connections. People close your lab, close your office because they have political connections. I think that that's not democracy. It's really trampling and destroying the democracy of everybody else, other than the few people who have political connections. Using visiting faculty and links to other resources from scientists abroad may also be helpful. I think that many Greek scientists abroad are more than willing to help and to try to support some of their talented colleagues who are struggling under very difficult odds to survive scientifically. And then the big question is, can we resuscitate that sense of benefit